The policeman's hand cut the air and hit Sarah's face with a snap that echoed throughout the court. The silence that followed was deafening. 50 people watched, paralyzed, while the 38-year-old woman staggered, holding the red cheek that was already starting to swell. "Learn your place, fat," shouted Official Martinez, adjusting the uniform with arrogance. "People like you should not even step here." Her voice reverberated through the walls of cold marble, echoing like a hammer of injustice. The judge on duty, a gray man behind the imposing bench, did not say a word. The present lawyers lowered their eyes, embarrassed, pretending to study their yellowish papers, pretending to have seen nothing. A lady in the first row covered her mouth with her hand, horrified, but remained in absolute silence. This was how it worked in the corrupt judicial system. When you didn't fit the standard expected by society, no one defended you. The law of the strongest always prevailed in that cold court of white marble and silent injustices. Sarah Miller took a deep breath, her brown eyes shining with a disturbing calm that completely haunted to all present. She didn't cry, it didn't shouted, it did not beg for mercy or mercy, only discreetly cleaned the blood of the corner of his mouth and whispered something no one could hear clearly. Martinez laughed loudly and satisfied, thinking he had broken another loser on that sunny day. He loved these moments of absolute power over people he considered inferior and unworthy of respect. What no one inside that tense room knew was that Sarah was representing her younger brother in an emergency custody hearing. Tommy, just 19 years old and studying engineering at the State University, had been unjustly arrested for drug possession, drugs that Martinez had planted in his backpack 3 weeks earlier during a routine approach on the campus. Sarah had discovered this out of chance when an elderly neighbor showed her a video secretly recorded from the violent approach, but it had decided strategically, not yet evidence. He had a much larger plan fermenting in his brilliant and calculating mind. 10 years ago, Sarah weighed 85 pounds and dreamed of being a federal judge. It came from an extremely poor family of Detroit's industrial suburb, the daughter of a cleaning lady who worked 3 strenuous shifts to pay for the bills, and a mechanic who never got a fixed job after the devastating 2008 crisis. He worked by day as secretary in a dark office and studied at night in fluorescent light, graduating with maximum honors in the prestigious University of Michigan. But the weight he has gained during years of constant stress, poorly slept nights, and cheap fast food meals made no one take her seriously in the elitist legal world. Advocacy offices rejected her systematically because she did not have the proper profile to represent the company. Judges interrupted it roughly in the middle of the allegations. Colleagues whispered cruel jokes through the cold corridors of the forums. Martinez kept gesturing like a proud and pretentious peacock, explaining to those mesmerized gifts why people like this was a chronic problem for American society. His poisonous words echoed through the audience room as pure and concentrated poison, infecting the environment with free hatred. Sarah watched her every movement, every despicable gesture, every disgust expression on her tanned face, recording absolutely everything in her privileged mind. She had photographic memory, something that few people knew about her, a rare ability that would soon be extremely useful for your secret plans. When he finally got up from the uncomfortable plastic chair, his 120 pounds moved with a natural elegance that completely surprised all the astonished gifts. There was no hurry in their calculated and measured gestures, only an unshakable dignity that violently contrasted with the cowardly aggression that had just suffered. "Official Martinez," he said in a firm and crystal-clear voice, "the Lord has just made a mistake that will change his life forever." His convinced smile hesitated for a second, but soon returned in full force and renewed arrogance. "Are you threatening me, no disgusting?" Sarah walked to the heavy wooden door with measuring and elegant steps, paused dramatically, and slowly turned as in a Hollywood movie scene. His eyes found his eyes in an electrical connection that made the room look heavy in tension. "It's not a threat, official, it's a solemn promise." The whole room arrested its breath collectively. There was something in that penetrating and determined look that made Martinez swallow for the first time in years. If you are enjoying this story of twist and justice, do not forget to subscribe to the channel so as not to lose any explosive details of what is coming. But Martinez had no idea who was really challenging at that fateful moment. In the endless corridors of the court, Martinez did not stop there. Sarah followed as a hungry predator, her voice echoing the marble walls as a damn echo. "Look what we have here," he shouted to his passing colleagues, gesturing dramatically. "Lawyer Whale thinks you can intimidate me." 3 other police officers joined him immediately, laughing like hungry hyenas. Sarah kept walking with dignity, but each step weighed like lead in her feet, sore by public humiliation. "Hey, Gordona!" Martinez shouted even louder. Doing well-dressed secretaries and pregnant lawyers stopped to watch the free show. Your little brother will rot in the federal jail. People like you always end up there. It's genetic, hereditary. The laughs multiplied as a virus, infecting the entire corridor. Sarah felt her chest squeeze painfully, but kept her posture upright and proud. His right hand trembled slightly, the only involuntary betrayal of his turbulent emotions. In the crowded and suffocating elevator, the embarrassing silence was even worse than the inhuman laughs. 15 tight people in the small, claustrophobic space, all consciously avoiding looking directly at her. A tailleur blonde woman dearly whispered maliciously to her friend, "Imagine the audacity of these people. People like that should be aware of their own ridicule." Sarah pretended not to hear the poisonous words, but she recorded every cruel syllable in her perfect photographic memory. What no one perceived was the suspicious small details that Sarah catalogued obsessively in her analytical mind. Martinez wore a very expensive gold clock, completely incompatible with ordinary police salary. His nails were dirty of a suspicious white substance. He scratched his nose constantly and his pupils were abnormally dilated. Sarah knew these revealing signs perfectly. He had defended many cases of drugs before being systematically rejected by the offices. At the busy reception of the court, Martinez made a point of telling his distorted version of the facts to anyone who wanted to listen carefully. "You lost the show up there. Elefanta tried to challenge me and took exactly what it deserved. I bet my sign that we'll run home, cry, and eat an entire dessert pizza." The laughs echoed through the imposing lobby as diabolical music. Sarah signed the exit papers with firm and controlled hands, but inside she felt every insult as stabs on her chest. The most painful and traumatic memory was not today. 3 years ago, Sarah had applied hope for a public prosecutor. It had all the necessary qualifications: impeccable experience, impressive historical victories in complicated cases. During the formal interview, the committee of 5 men didn't even disguise prejudice. "Miss Miller, you certainly understand that this position requires page presence, public trust, adequate image for the media, crystalline code for, you are too fat to represent us publicly." That lonely and cold night, alone in her tiny, illuminated apartment, Sarah had cried until she fell asleep, embraced the heavy law books. But he woke up the next day with a determination of iron forged in pain. If the corrupt system didn't want it, it would change the entire system from the inside out. Then began a meticulous plan that would take long years to mature completely. Martinez continued his degrading theatrical performance, now imitating the elegant gestures of Sarah, grotesquely exaggerated. "It's not a threat, it's a promise," he said in an affected and feminine voice, exaggeratingly rolling around the hallway. "What a terrible fear, guys. The killer whale will sue me." Even the veteran security of the building laughed openly. Sarah kept this moment too. Every laugh, every name, every eyewitness. Outside, under Detroit's scorching and ruthless sun, Sarah finally allowed a lone tear to drain through the still red cheek. Not of pathetic self-pity, but of pure concentrated and distilled anger. He took his cell phone with certain hands and dialed a number that he knew perfectly by heart. "Uncle Robert, it's me, Sarah. Finally the time has arrived. I need to activate immediately those contacts that promised me." The experienced voice on the other side became serious immediately. As he walked determined to the parked car, Sarah smiled for the first time all day. A smile that didn't come to the eyes injured, but carried dangerous and definitive promises. Martinez had completely underestimated with those who were moving, and very soon would discover the bitter price of excessive arrogance. What no one there knew was that Sarah had spent the last 5 years by silently building a secret network of information that went far beyond what anyone could imagine. 3 days after the humiliating and traumatic incident, Sarah was sitting in a discreet coffee in downtown Detroit, eagerly waiting for the meeting that would change everything. His hand shook slightly as he held the cup of steaming black coffee, not out of paralyzing fear, but by pure and concentrated anticipation of finally obtaining the deserved justice. The glass door opened and a 65-year-old black man entered. Impeccable tailoring suit, an imposing presence that commanded instant respect for all present. Robert Hayes, former retired federal judge and godfather of Sarah since she was an orphaned child of real opportunities. The powerful man who had solemnly promised to help her when the right time has come to counterattack. "My dear brave girl," Robert said in a serious and affectionate voice, hugging her with genuine affection that warmed her heart injured by injustice. "I received all of your urgent and detailed messages. Martinez has no idea of the dangerous waspy that poked such arrogance, right?" Sarah smiled for the first time in days, a real and determined smile, loaded with renewed hope and burning thirst for justice. "Uncle Robert, I urgently need to personally introduce myself to Governor Thompson, and I want absolutely all the dossiers to get on systematic police corruption in Martinez's rotten department. I don't want to leave anything at random." Robert carefully opened a legitimate leather paste and spread explosive documents on the varnished wooden table. Sarah, you know perfectly well that I have solid and influential connections in Washington for 40 years of brilliant career. But I need to be absolutely sure before proceeding. Is it really psychologically prepared to go to the end? Because after we start this judicial war, there is no return or regret possible. Sarah took a compromising photo from Martinez, leaving a suspicious motel with a woman who was clearly not her legitimate wife. He deliberately destroyed the life of my innocent brother and humiliated me publicly before dozens of people. I am more than prepared for this epic battle. Meanwhile, completely oblivious to imminent danger, Martinez remained his disgusting routine of arrogance and blatant abuse of power on the streets of Detroit. That sunny and seemingly normal morning, they had stopped 3 black young people unfounded, revising them aggressively in front of a primary school crowded with terrified children. You know exactly how it is, he told his colleague casually, while brutally handled one of the completely innocent boys. This gentle needs to definitely learn who rules here in this corrupt city, just like that fat ridiculous court. I bet my sign that no longer appears there. It is probably at home crying and eating. What Martinez didn't know was that one of the boy's angry mothers had discreetly filmed everything with his cell phone and sent the compromising video directly to Sarah through an extensive network of contacts she had been patiently building for long years. Sarah watched the video 3 times in a row, obsessively cataloging each flagrant violation of basic constitutional rights. His privileged photographic memory recorded every microscopic detail: exact time, precise location, eyewitness, car license plate, distinctive number, even the color of the main witness shirt. Robert had done much more investigative than Sarah expected or dreamed possible in such a short time. At his table were now complete and detailed dossiers about Martinez, astronomical game debts in clandestine casinos, frequency suspicious of expensive nightclubs, mysterious bank deposits completely incompatible with his official server salary. There are persistent and credible rumors that he works secretly to international trafficker Viktor Petrov, Robert explained with absolute seriousness. But no one has ever achieved concrete and irrefutable evidence against him to this day. He is smart and careful. Sarah smiled, disturbed and calculating, her eyes shining with sharp intelligence. Uncle Robert, do you remember that my special ability to observe thoroughly? She pulled a thick notebook full of detailed notes in a girl and organized. I have meticulously registered every suspicious movement of Martinez in the last 2 whole years. Exact times, specific places, people with whom they are secretly behavioral patterns. Absolutely everything is documented and cataloged here, Metadial, and Robert threw the thick notebook, genuinely impressed by the obsessive dedication. My God of heaven, Sarah, you are a better researcher than the specialized FBI itself. In the dirty, corrupt police station, completely unconscious of danger approaching, Martinez laughed loudly with his colleagues about the pathetic wail of the court. I bet all my retirement that she went home to cry like a child and never comes back here to bother us, he said arrogantly, scratching his nose compulsively, a symptom that Sarah had noted as a suspicious pattern of recreational drugs. People should know their own place in civilized society. Courts are for important and respectable people, not for grotesque elephants clueless. But Sarah had a devastating surprise waiting strategically for Martinez. Robert had arranged an urgent meeting for her with Governor Thompson next crucial Monday. Sarah, said Robert, carefully keeping the compromising documents, there is something extremely important that I have never told you in all these years of relationship. Governor Thompson is my first-degree cousin, and he is desperately looking for someone exactly with his profile for a very special and strategic appointment in the state judiciary. Sarah felt her heart accelerate with infinite possibilities. Uncle Robert, are you saying what I think you're saying? Robert nodded solemnly. There is a district judge vacancy that needs to be urgently filled. Someone, brilliant, with experience in civil rights and history of fighting injustice. You are literally the perfect candidate they have been looking for months. That lonely and silent night, alone at home, Sarah looked at a long time in the mirror of the tiny bathroom. The purple marks of the slap were still painfully visible on his swollen face, but his brown eyes shone with an unquestionable determination. Martinez whispered to the reflection with a cold, controlled voice. You have no idea of the devastating tsunami that is coming directly toward you. Sarah had spent 5 years discreetly building an impressive network of contacts that included influential federal judges, experienced promoters, courageous investigative journalists, and even some honest police who were completely tired of the systematic corruption of colleagues like Martinez. Everyone patiently awaited only one sign of her to act in perfect coordination against the ordinary enemy. The phone rang shrill in the small kitchen. It was Tommy, calling from the overcrowded and unhealthy chain. "Sarah, I heard that Martinez is telling everyone that you will never step in court, that you finally learned your lesson about your own place." Sarah smiled coldly, her eyes narrowing dangerously like those of a predator. "Tommy, blindly trust me as you have always trusted. In a few days, Martinez will painfully discover who really learned a definitive and unforgettable lesson." What Martinez didn't know was that Sarah was about to receive a call that would completely change the power game between them forever. On Monday morning, Sarah was adjusting the elegant black tailleur when the phone insistently rang in the silent cuisine. "Sarah Miller, here is Governor James Thompson talking personally. Robert Hayes told me a lot about you and your absolutely inspiring story." The voice was firm, authoritarian, but full of genuine respect she rarely heard. "I urgently need to come to my office today at 2 in the afternoon. I have a proposal that will change your life forever." Sarah could barely breathe or formulate coherent words. He was really the state governor personally calling her, a rejected and humiliated lawyer. In the imposing and luxurious office of the Capitol, decorated with portraits of historical judges, Thompson went straight to the point without unnecessary rodeos. "Miss Miller, urgently need to be extraordinarily brave for the district judge's vacancy. Someone who understands injustice on his own skin and fights tirelessly for society's oppressed. Robert told me in detail about the cowardly incident with Martinez and his admirable dedication." He paused, studying his marked face. "Do you accept the official appointment immediately?" Sarah felt hot tears of pure joy sprout involuntarily, staining her careful makeup. "I accept with honor and humility, Lord Governor." 3 hours later, she was officially named District Judge Sarah Miller, sworn in an intimate ceremony. Meanwhile, completely oblivious to the devastating tsunami quickly approaching, Martinez was in the dirty police station telling an advantage once again for anyone who wanted to hear his stories. "That disgusting whale-naked NCA Moore appeared in court. I bet it's hidden at home, crying like a child and eating depression pizza." Your colleague Johnson laughed wildly, hitting the table. "You really ended up with her, Martinez. People like this need to know their own place in society." It was a public service. Martinez scratched his nose compulsively. His glazed and red eyes was clearly under the influence of some illegal substance that Sarah had documented. On Thursday, fateful and sunny, Martinez received an official judicial quote that would change her life completely forever. Mandatory attendance at the district court for audience on multiple accusations of authority abuse and corruption. He laughed wildly, throwing the yellow paper in the trash with contempt. "What a pathetic and desperate joke. It is probably that fat desperate trying to sue me for moral damages. I will show her again who really sends here in this city." He wore the uniform with extra arrogance, adjusted the golden badge and set off for the court, eager for another public show of free humiliation. The room was completely crowded with respected lawyers, anxious reporters, curious citizens, and multiple TV cameras broadcasting live. Martinez entered confidently like a colorful peacock, obsessively seeking Sarah among the audience to mock once again from his favorite victim and repeat the humiliating spectacle. But he didn't find her anywhere in the audience. The bailiff dressed in black announced solemnly with a voice that echoed throughout the silent enclosure, "Respectfully get up to the Honorable Judge Sarah Miller." Martinez froze as a statue of biblical salt. The heavy side door opened dramatically and Sarah entered majestic, wearing the sacred black gut of justice, walking with absolute dignity to the high mahogany bench. Martinez's tanned face went white as a virgin printer roll. Her legs trembled violently like gale leaves. "No, it can't be. This is not happening to me," he murmured desperately to himself, denying reality. Sarah sat calmly in the chair of supreme power, adjusted the elegant glasses, and looked at him straight into the eyes with divine and unshakable authority. "Good morning, Officer Martinez. Or should I formally say, Defendant Martinez?" His voice echoed through the room with supreme and cold authority. The arrogant policeman began to sweat uncontrollably, his shirt sticking to his body. "Your Excellency," stammered Martinez pathetically, desperately trying to recompose himself and understand the surreal situation that was presented. Sarah smiled coldly, a calculating smile that didn't come to her eyes, determined and bright. "Official Martinez, for long years the Lord has systematically abused his power, humbled completely innocent citizens, and planted false evidence in honest people. Today justice has finally come to the Lord. It opened a thick paste full of chronologically organized compromising documents. I have here absolutely irrefutable evidence of active corruption, drug trafficking, extortion, and multiple cases of abuse of authority, all properly documented with photographs, high-definition videos, and credible witnesses." Martinez tried to deny desperately, his voice failing and fluttering. "This is a blatant lie, diabolic and premeditated frame. She is chasing me for personal revenge, Petty." Sarah kept her calm, every word measured as a sharp blade cutting the air. "Official Martinez, you remember perfectly what you said to me exactly 2 weeks ago in this same city? What people like me should know their own place." She paused dramatically, letting the silence heavy weigh over the whole room. "Well, today the Lord will find out what my designated place really is, and what is exactly yours." The prosecution systematically presented high-resolution compromising videos, date and time flagrant photographs, devastating testimonials of brave victims, suspicious bank records that did not absolutely combine with ordinary police salary. Martinez watched horrified and completely paralyzed to the total and irreversible collapse of his entire life built in lies. All the evidence that Sarah had obsessively collected for long years were there, organized perfectly as pieces of a complex puzzle. He was completely finished and knew that deeply in his core. "Besides," Sarah relentlessly continued, his voice cutting the air as a razor, "here we have the detailed testimony of the elderly neighbor who filmed you planting drugs in my brother Tommy's backpack. Completely illegal and violent dances to defenseless minors." Martinez collapsed in the wooden chair, sweating profusely, realizing that there was no possible escape or lawyer who could save him. "Official Martinez," Sarah said in a solemn and final voice as a hammer of justice, "for the multiple heinous crimes of authority abuse, active corruption, international narcotics trafficking, and systematic proof forgery, you are officially arrested." 2 federal delegates approached bright steel handcuffs. Martinez looked at Sarah one last time with pleading and desperate eyes, and she whispered only for him to hear clearly, "I warned it was not an empty threat. It was a solemn promise I keep today." While Martinez was taken handcuffed under the incessant flashes of the cameras and deafening screams of the reporters, Sarah remained serene as a goddess in her high mahogany bench. The whole room was respectful and admired silence. Everyone perfectly understood that they had just witnessed not only a common judgment, but an epic life lesson about never underestimating people by physical appearance. Sarah hit the sacred hammer one last time with supreme authority. Officially closed hearing. The court was completely made in this venue. The echo of the hammer reverberated through the room as a golden bell of absolute victory. The woman who had been cruelly called fat and whale now wore supreme dignity the sacred toga of justice. Outside, hundreds of multiple reporters were looking forward to the first exclusive interview of the new judge. 6 months later, Sarah's life had completely turned almost magic and inspiringly. Sitting in her elegant judge office, decorated with gold diplomas and shelves full of law books, she analyzed processes with the same obsessive dedication as always. But now his word had an absolute weight of law. His voice echoed with divine authority through the corridors who once rejected her cruelly. Tommy was free, studying engineering again, proud of his sister who never gave up on him. "Sarah," he said on his last visit, hugging her with tears in his eyes, "you haven't saved me just. Saved dozens of innocent people that Martinez systemically harmed during years of impunity." The transformation in the local judicial system was impressive and lasting for the entire community. Sarah implemented revolutionary police transparency programs, created direct channels for allegations of abuse, and established rigorous punishments for any kind of institutional corruption. His reputation of relentless but absolutely fair judge spread quickly throughout the state as uncontrollable fire. Lawyers who previously despised her now competed desperately to work in her prestigious cases. "She is absolutely brilliant and incorruptible," commented a veteran prosecutor with genuine admiration. "I have never seen someone with such tireless dedication to true and impartial justice." Meanwhile, Martinez was miserably in his lonely and cold cell, fulfilling 15 years for multiple heinous crimes. His former colleagues avoided him completely, embarrassed by the toxic association with his reputation destroyed forever. His wife asked for divorce immediately, taking his children away from the devastating public shame that consumed the family. Viktor Petrov, the international trafficker, was also arrested thanks to the irrefutable evidence that Sarah provided directly to the FBI. The entire corruption network collapsed as a castle of fragile letters. Martinez, who once laughed at the whale, now cried alone every night, finally understanding the bitter price of the excessive arrogance and blind prejudice that destroyed his life. Sarah's first major interview was on national television, broadcast live to millions of watchful viewers across the country. "Judge Miller," asked the experienced reporter, "how do you feel being the youngest black judge and plus-size named by the governor?" Sarah smiled with absolute and inspiring serenity. "I feel deeply honored to serve justice with unshakable dignity. But more importantly, I sincerely hope that my story shows people that we should never judge someone for physical appearance. Intelligence, dignity, and determination are not specific or defined color. The Martinez case became a mandatory study at law schools across the country, being analyzed by thousands of students annually. Renowned teachers used history as a perfect example of how prejudice can completely blind people to one's real potential. Sarah Miller has definitely proved that the best revenge is absolute success, explained a Harvard teacher for a room of fascinated students. He moved his pain in unshakable strength, his humiliation in relentless motivation, and his systematic rejection in a railway determination that moved mountains. Sarah has never forgotten her humble origins or the painful moments of systematic rejection she faced for years. In his imposing office, he kept a framed photo of the day of humiliation, not by masochism, but as a constant reminder that each no had strengthened it, each door closed it had directed to the right way. Some people are born with unmerited privileges, she used to tell young lawyers in lectures. Others build their own privileges through tireless perseverance and hard work no one can question. 2 years after the initial appointment, Sarah was elected by historical unanimity to the Supreme Court, the youngest in American history. On the solemn day of possession, hundreds of people attended emotional, including many that she had helped over the years. Families whose children were protected from corrupt police officers. Lawyers who found inspiration in their unique trajectory. Young plus size who saw a powerful model of infinite possibility in it. Governor Thompson himself made a point of presiding over the ceremony in person. During his exciting speech, Sarah looked at the diverse crowd and saw faces of all possible colors, sizes, and social origins. "Today I'm not just here like Sarah Miller," he said in a firm voice that he echoed for the crowded auditorium. "I am here representing all who have been systematically underestimated, humiliated, or rejected for not fitting into prejudiced standards of society. This sacred toga is not my property. It is all of you who believed that justice can prevail over the most cruel injustice." Martinez, watching his cell through a small crackling television, turned off the device and turned to the cold concrete wall. He had lost not only physical freedom, but also the unique chance of recognizing the greatness when she was right in front of him. The irony was painfully clear. He who was superior had been completely overthrown by someone who considered inferior and despicable. His cell companions even laughed at him when they found that he had been arrested by a fat. Sarah established the Dignity and Justice Foundation for young victims of bullying and prejudice, offering integral study scholarships and specialized legal mentor. "No one should go through what I went completely alone," she said in motivational lectures that crowded auditoriums. Its story inspired award-winning documentaries, bestsellers books, and even a Hollywood movie that hit historic box office records. It has become a world symbol of resistance and overcoming, receiving invitations to speak at the UN. The Sarah Foundation has grown exponentially, helping more than 1,000 young people in 5 years. She created a special program for gordophobia victims, offering free psychological and legal support. "Each person we help is a victory against prejudice," he explained in interviews. Tommy graduated engineer with honors and became executive director of the foundation, dedicating his life to help others like him. At the end of the historic ceremony, a journalist asked Sarah what advice would give to people who face prejudice daily. "Never let the limited opinion of others define its real value," she replied, looking straight at the camera with absolute determination. "Use every no as a powerful fuel, every door closed as divine redirection, every humiliation as pure and concentrated motivation, because in the end, they are always the underestimated ones who write the most powerful and transforming stories of entire humanity." Sarah Miller's story has become an international inspiring legend, inspiring entire generations to never give up on their dreams, regardless of the physical or social obstacles faced daily. She has definitely proved that true strength is not in the perfect body, but in an unshakable character, and that justice always finds a way, even if it takes years to flourish completely. Their sentences were studied worldwide as examples of perfect justice. If you were thrilled with this epic history of overcoming and poetic justice, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories that show how determination can overcome any prejudice. The whale had become a powerful, respected, and completely unstoppable orca in the waters of justice.